If you were a student at UGA in the early 80s, as Bill Douglas was, it was a time like no other. Herschel Walker led the Bulldogs to the national championship. The new Tate Student Center opened its doors, and campus life was its usual never-ending source of distractions. But over at Bill's apartment, some serious studying was going on. 3 of the roommates in that household were destined for success as an insurance broker, a dentist, and a surgeon. Bill was the accountant in the room, and by his own admission, he was not someone who seemed destined for a career as a globe-trotting executive for Coca-Cola. My upbringing and my adulthood are complete opposites, says Bill, who was born and raised in Warner Robins, where his parents worked as civil servants at Robins Air Force Base. He played football at Northside Warner Robins and married his high school sweetheart, Lisa Lehman. My view of the world was very narrow back then, says Bill. I didn't have a passport until I was 26. Ultimately, Bill's briefcase would be overflowing with international sky miles, owing to Coca-Cola assignments in Madrid, Oslo, London, and Athens. Having distinguished himself overseas, Bill returned to Coca-Cola's hometown of Atlanta in 2004 and became Senior Vice President and CFO of Coca-Cola Enterprises. He was promoted to Executive Vice President and CFO of CCE in 2008. Growing up in Georgia, I can honestly say that we never had a Pepsi in our house, says Bill, who spent 3 years as assistant manager and then manager of Coca-Cola North America's accounting group, till one fateful Friday afternoon when he was asked if he would be interested in a 6-month assignment in Spain. Bill and Lisa were stateside for the birth of their 2 children, Will, who is now a senior finance major at Terry, and Ella, who is a sophomore at Wake Forest. But Bill was now on the international side of the business. Next stop, Oslo, in the fall of 1991. It was intended to be a safe, low-stress assignment, says Bill, but by the time I actually took it, that sleepy little Norway office was given responsibility for introducing Coca-Cola to the former Soviet Union. Back then, the only place you could buy Coca-Cola products in the former Soviet republics was in Western hotels. But that was about to change. Overnight, Bill went from a finance manager with a predictable daily routine to a member of what he calls a 6-man entrepreneurial SWAT team. Our assignment was to build new bottling plants and set up joint business ventures in places like Moscow, St. Petersburg, Ukraine, and the Baltics, says Bill, whose team was shadowed by a security force of former KGB agents to keep them out of harm's way. Living in Europe and experiencing things like the 1994 Lillehammer Olympics was life-altering, not only for Lisa and Bill, but for Will and Ella, who got a real international education. Coca-Cola is arguably the most recognized brand in the world, and the way the product reaches over 1 billion people every day is a marvel of business engineering. The Coca-Cola Company owns the trademark and creates advertising for some 200 countries around the world, but the bottling system is where most of the action is. As CFO of the newly created Coca-Cola Enterprises, Bill was a key architect of the recent $15 billion sale of Coca-Cola Enterprises' North American business back to the Coca-Cola Company. CCE has now recreated itself as a purely European entity. Bill divides his time between working in Atlanta and traveling to Europe, but on weekends he retreats to the 325-acre farm that he and Lisa maintain in Bishop, Georgia, just south of Athens. It's the only land in the history of Oconee County to be rezoned from residential back to agricultural, says Lisa, and it's a real working farm with sheep, chickens, goats, and horses. Busy as he is, Bill is a devoted supporter of his alma mater and of the Terry College. As nominator John Schrodenbach says, Bill Douglas has served as a Toll School Advisory Board member for many years, and he is a past recipient of the Toll School Alumni of the Year Award. He is also a trustee of the University of Georgia Foundation, where his knowledge of finance and accounting is a huge asset to the university. The Terry College is proud to present its 2011 Distinguished Alumni Award to Bill Douglas.